Hello, welcome back, our moons and our stars. If you don't know who I am, my name is Brianna, and I have a small business called Moonwax Galaxy where I make soy-based wax melts and candles with a space theme. So, today I wanted to kind of talk about a market that we went to, and I was a little nervous to make this video because I feel like I'm always nervous to talk about, like, I don't want to say negative experiences, because to me, like, negative experiences, or what most people would consider a negative experience, is just a learning experience, really. But essentially, we went to a market and we didn't make as many sales as we expected. And when I say we, I mean me, Kimberly, and our artist, and we got like 2 sales. So I want to talk about failures when it comes to markets, because this is not the first dud we've had in terms of going to markets, and I've been able to like take them in stride. But I want to talk about going to markets or in-person events where you are a vendor, you're trying to sell stuff, and you don't meet expectations. You don't make any sales, or you make very little sales. And I feel as though a lot of times vendors or small businesses will really get all up in their feelings. They'll get mad, they'll get sad, emotions running high. Some people completely give up on making in-person sales. Overall, some people are like, I'm just never going to come back to this particular event. And I want to just talk about what to do and how to feel if you do not necessarily make the sales that you want to when you are at a market. So, all that being said, let me tell you what happened first and what I learned from it, and then kind of give you my tips and tricks. I have notes on my phone, so excuse me if I'm like looking off to the side or down because I'm looking at my phone. I also want to talk about just going to in-person events in general and like my tips and tricks. I have always been nervous about giving my tips and tricks, only because like we are fairly new. We're a small business, but we have been doing like in-person events and markets and stuff for almost a year now. And I know that there are people out there that have been doing it for 10 years, 15 years, right? A lot longer than us, that have also given their 2 cents. But I thought about it and I was like, why not just share what we've learned? It can't hurt, right? So let me explain to you about this event. So this event specifically was supposed to be a craft fair focused around basically crafters. So when I say crafters, it's specifically focused around small businesses and vendors that make their own product, right? Whether that's you make custom, there was a lady that made custom wine glasses. Like, she printed words. Why do I say print? It's vinyl, and she like makes her own designs on the wine glasses. She also had a whole bunch of stuff. She had bottles, she had like water bottles. I don't know if they were plastic or glass. I think they were plastic. She had keychains. There was a lot of people that had like jewelry. At this particular event, there was indoors and outdoor vendors. I personally did not see a lot of the indoor vendors because I had to stay outside. I know Kim went in and she was saying that a lot of them made like their own dog treats, very like gourmet luxury dog treats. I was like, all right. Kim was like, yeah, it looks pretty much like human food. I was like, oh wow, okay, we're getting fancy over here. So dog treats, a lot of clothes, a lot of like quilts. There was a lady that made like these wooden signs with different characters on them and different messages and words that I thought was really cool. I was gonna buy one, but I was broke at the time, so I didn't need to purchase one, and I'm so sorry about it. But yeah, that was essentially the idea. There were vendors that were indoors, we were outdoors, we had our tents, and just to provide some insight. So I don't know how much details I want to give out. Essentially, when you're a vendor, you have to pay to be at these events, right? You pay your vendor fee. Now, the vendor fee can vary from anywhere as little as $25 or $20 all the way up to $300, right? Sometimes if it's a big event like a concert or something like Lollapalooza, or you get what I'm saying, like a huge event like that, it might even go up to the thousands of dollars if you're trying to get into a really big event. It depends on where you are, who you're with, what the event is for, how many people are going to show up. All of these factor into the prices. Now, if you're just starting out, and I mean just starting out, like are barely in LLC, you barely made any sales, you've like just opened up your business and you're trying to get sales versus like you've already have like a small customer base already, I would recommend not spending more than like anywhere from 25 to maybe 80, and 80 is pushing it. I would really say 60, but anywhere from 25 to 80 and stay within that range, because if you're just starting out, you really don't want to spend a lot of money, because nothing is guaranteed, and you would be absolutely pissed if you paid $100 and something for an event and you don't make that money back or even a profit, right? And I've seen it happen before where vendors pay quite a bit of money and they leave upset, not because they didn't make any sales, but because they didn't make as much as they wanted to make back. So keep that in mind. Like, sales are never guaranteed to you, even if it's more expensive, because I think some people think, and I thought this before too, oh, if it's more expensive, that means that it's going to be more traffic. That doesn't necessarily guarantee more traffic. Sometimes it's just based off of, honestly, the location and how much that host particularly pays for that space, because their rent might be really expensive. And so what a lot of times they do, and they don't talk about this, but pretty much they're having you pay off that vendor fee is going for something about their space, whether it's a utility bill, whether it's like the rent that they pay for that space, it's going to go to that bill. So sometimes hosts or hosts will increase that price in order to make up for their rent, if that makes sense. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be more people showing up. So there's that. But yeah, I would recommend staying within that sort of range. Now, the event I went to, like I said, was meant for crafters. It was $25, and it was with a park district. And this park district we've been to 2 times before, and we did really well. So I was really excited to come to this event, because I was like, okay, based on the other events, and granted, they do like events like almost every other week, right? We have not been to every single event. I've heard stories that, you know, sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't, after I talked around, but the ones that we went to have always been great. I'm going to talk more about that in a second. So when we went, there was a shit ton of vendors, essentially. And Kim was like, are you sure? But I said, I think there's at least maybe 100 something vendors there. Maybe a little bit over 100. Based off of like walking around inside, at least from what I could peek at, through the door, I saw so many tables set up. And then outside there was also like every vendor had a tent set up outside, right? So I was like, there's easily 100 vendors out there. And again, going off of their track record, I assumed that this was going to be a really good event. We set up. There was a lot of stuff that happened. I forgot stuff. We did not have weights, and there was a weight requirement on our tent. Like, when you have tents, you have to have weights. So there was a big fiasco with that stuff. I might talk about it later, but for now I just want to try to stay focused on topic. But essentially, yeah, we went through this big fiasco, and when we got there, I essentially sold 2 candles. I sold a big candle that I showed in a previous video, the large 16-ounce amber jars. I sold one of those, and then I sold my $12 summer candles, and that was it. Right? Like, I made a grand total of $36. So I made a profit of $12 because the vendor's fee was $25. Like, I just made that back, right? Some people factor in their gas for the event. I don't particularly do that. But if that's something you want to factor in, depending on how far away you are from the event and how long you have to drive, that's also something else you can factor in. But, you know. So essentially the event started from 9 to 3. So this event was the first one where the time was also different, because the other ones we went to was more so in the evening and at night. So the other ones we went to was from 3. Was it 3 or was it 5? Don't quote me on that. I think it was about like 4 or 5 to like 10 o'clock, pretty much. About 5 or 6 hours. So this one was the same amount of time, but it was in the morning / afternoon. And this was like, they were making a big deal out of this. So because of all the information that they gave me, I thought it was going to be a big crowd, right? Like, for example, the parking lot that was in front of the event was for customers only. So vendors had to park it was 5 minutes away, really. But we had to park 5 minutes away at another park there, and there was a shuttle bus that was transporting vendors back and forth between the parking lot and the actual event space. So pretty much they were like, yeah, please don't park in this parking lot because that's for customers, and if the parking lot is full, customers aren't going to really want to, they're just going to drive on by, they're not going to stay, right? So I'm like, okay, they're making a big deal out of this, there's going to be a lot of people. Not a lot of people showed up. And the people that did show up, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm ungrateful, because I am definitely grateful that people showed up, that checked us out, that took a business card, whatever the case may be. I am glad to talk to people and have them, check us out. But a lot of the people that did show up didn't really spend any money, or they didn't seem interested in spending any money. They were just walking around kind of checking stuff out, but no one really bought anything. And towards the end, we did talk to some of the other vendors at some point, but it was just a really weird event. And here's what I think happened, right? And it's only speculation, because when it comes to these sorts of events, I like to take a step back and think, okay, what went wrong? Could it have been promotion, right? Because the park district in question did have a Facebook page. I think that's really where their bread and butter comes from in terms of promotion, is that they have a large following on their Facebook page. And they encourage all the vendors to share and also promote with their networks. So my thought is, if every vendor shares, even if they don't have, even accounting for the few vendors that were we don't really have social media, or if they might be older and not really know how to use social media, whatever the case may be, again, there was still easily over 100 vendors there. So there had to be enough to draw at least some people in if they at least shared it on Facebook, talked about it on their Instagram, whatever the case may be. If they did promotion, I feel like more people would have showed up. So I was like, well, it could have been just not enough promotion, but at the same time, and this is another thought I had when I stepped back, it could just be the setup of the event itself. And when I say the setup of the event itself, I mean the purpose of the event, right? The other two events that we went to with this particular park district went really well because they were free events to the public. The first one we went to, it was before, I think it was July 1st, and it was supposed to be a 4th of July event. They were doing a fireworks show because it was close to the 4th of July. You get what I'm saying? And it was just a free fireworks show that people could come to and watch. The aspect of it was that, oh, here's this free event, and vendors just happen to be there, right? Here is where you can spend money, but the main purpose of the event is this free thing. Same thing with another event that we did where they were showing movies in the park. Hey, come and watch this free movie, but also vendors just happen to be there where you can spend money. Those are the things that I feel like we did really well, where it's here is this free thing, but also here are vendors where you can spend money if you want to. This particular event where it was a little bit of a dud, it was oh, come out and support small businesses, right? Which again, support small businesses if you can. I understand that not everyone can do that. I understand the whole controversy around supporting small businesses, but I feel because the whole purpose of the event was, hey, come out and spend money, people felt differently about it. You get what I'm trying to say? So I think that's the main reason why this event didn't turn out as expected. And there was other aspects of they didn't really want us to leave early, which I understand why. You don't want vendors to pack up and leave early, because if the vendors are leaving, no one's going to stay, right? People are going to leave too. But in the same aspect, when I read that in the email, I was like, this should have been a red flag, because vendors typically, if there's enough vendors leaving for you to say something like that, there has to be a reason why. It's one thing if it's oh, this vendor left early because they weren't making enough sales and they were mad, or oh, this vendor left early because something popped up and they have to be gone by a certain time that's earlier than the event. Okay, fine, whatever. But if enough people are leaving for you to say something to everyone, that might be a red flag. There might be another conversation we need to have of why are vendors leaving early. And it is what it is. But essentially, yeah, that was pretty much what I thought. The other thing that I thought of in terms of what to do for the future, right, is not only think about the purpose of an event, whether it's in person, if it's just a craft fair, whether it's a market, whether it's a whatever the fuck, you know, a pop-up. Research what this event really is. Like, don't just pay for it and go and just expect people to show up. And I say this because I usually do my research, but I've learned that there's other things that I need to think about. For example, location. Is the location somewhere that's hard to find? Is it tucked away in an area where there's not a lot of people, there's not a lot of traffic? If that's the case, I would recommend probably not going to that one, only because if it's hard to find, if it's hard for you to find, it's going to be hard for other people to find. And usually stuff like that is like only like the people who are really there to support you will show up. But if you're looking for something where it's like, oh, I want to make this many sales, and you want sales from not only the people that know you already and support you, but new customers, then they have to be able to find you. You get what I'm saying? I would also say to research not only the location, but the purpose. So for example, there was one, because we go to a lot of events out in Indiana, and I'm like, damn, we're out in Indiana a lot, and we're based in Chicago. Like, I want to go to more Chicago events, right? There was one particular event I saw on Facebook happening that I almost went to because how close it was, but then I thought about it because the location was in a little bit of a shady area. Like, it was already in a rougher neighborhood, and I say that because I used to live out there. It's in a rougher neighborhood, but they were also like, it's not in the building, it's in the parking lot behind the building. So already I'm kind of like, okay, the location is probably going to be a little bit hard for people to find. It's outside, which I don't really mind as much, but also it was not a free event, right? Like, they mentioned that they were going to sell tickets. So my thought is, if you're going to an event and you already have to pay a ticket to get in, how willing are you to continue to spend even more money with vendors? You get what I'm saying? And granted, this was like a whole different event of like, hey, you can buy a ticket and there are things you can do. But also, again, how many people are really going to want to spend more money? I can understand if it's like a festival style where like you go to, what are they called? Amusement parks, where it's like rides and yada, 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 and blah, 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 blah. But then you also have other vendors on the side where you can spend more money. But I was kind of like, this is like a small thing. It's in a parking lot. I was kind of like, I don't really think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be willing to spend more money on top of already paying their ticket. You get what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm going to sit this one out as much as I don't want to. Those are other things that I consider. But like I said, events that have a purpose, that have preferably something free already going on, do a lot better than just like, hey, we have a whole bunch of people trying to sell you stuff. Come check out small businesses. Because a lot of times people might not really come out, right? Especially considering the day and age we're in right now. Like, we are on the brink of a recession. There's some people that say we're not. I think we're on the brink of a recession, right? People don't have a lot of money to spare. Prices going up for a lot of stuff. People are being more selective about what they're spending their money on. So I try to keep this in mind of like, even though yes, people should support black businesses and small black businesses, keep in mind that people ain't got money right now, and it is what it is. Essentially, at the end of the day, people don't have a lot of money to spare. Try to really research and be more selective of where you're going, what you're looking for, yada, yada, yada. With that said, I'm probably going to end this video here. You can check us out in the next video. I think I am going to split this up into 2 parts. So the next video will be just talking about markets in general and like the tips and tricks that I came up with, because I don't want this video to be too long. Because I already be making like 20-30 minute videos, so I'm like, let me cut this down and keep it focused. So yes, next video will be about just our in general thoughts, tips and tricks about going to your market, to a in-person event, whether it's a market, whether it's a craft fair, whatever it is, regardless if it's your first one or not. I think that these tips and tricks will be helpful. So yes, please look forward to our next video. Thank you so much for watching. May fate conspire in your favor, and may your stars always align. I guess, see, sorry, my cat is like very pissed off. Can you not interrupt the video, please? Anyway, going to markets or in-person events where you are a vendor and you're trying to, it really depends on where you are, who it's with. Excuse my cat.